She hits the ball, and for a moment, nobody in Sobe Stadium moves. Not the American across the net. Not the 250,000 Filipinos packed into a stadium that was supposed to belong to someone else's tournament tonight. 63 minutes earlier, this match was billed as a mismatch on paper. A rising 21-year-old against a Sir that has, by official record, never been beaten by anyone but Venus Williams. 129 miles per hour. That's the number that made grown professionals flinch on tour. That's the number that broke Alex Eala in Melbourne 7 months ago. Tonight, in 1 hour and 12 minutes, it meant nothing. Eala walks off the court having beaten Alycia Parks 6-3, 6-4, and somewhere in that scoreline is a detail nobody in the crowd fully understands yet. This wasn't just a win, it was a correction, a settling of a score that had been quietly eating at her since January. And here's what almost nobody is talking about yet. This win doesn't just send her into the third round of the Canadian Open. It puts her one match away from a stage that could be worth $7.43 million, and a collision course with the one player on tour who has beaten her not once, but twice this year. So how does a player who was humiliated by this exact opponent 7 months ago walk back onto a court against her and make it look easy? To understand that, you have to go back to Melbourne, to a night that should have broken her in January at the Australian Open. Eala did something remarkable and then watched it evaporate. She took the first set from Parks 6-0. A demolition. The kind of set that makes commentators start talking about upsets. And then it slipped. Parks clawed her way back, found her rhythm on that freakish first serve, and closed out the match 6-3, 6-2. For Eala, it wasn't just a loss. It was proof of a hole in her game, that when the pressure of a big lead meant an opponent capable of hitting through anyone, she didn't yet have the answer. That kind of defeat lingers. It shows up in film sessions, in practice courts, in the quiet moments before a match against a player who already knows she can beat you. So when the draw in Toronto paired her against Parks again, this wasn't just another second-round tie. It was unfinished business, and Eala knew it. "I've improved as a player since then," she said afterward, and the scoreboard did something quotes rarely get to do. It backed her up completely. What changed wasn't mysterious. It was tactical, and it was ruthless. Eala's entire game plan was built around one idea. Take away the thing that beat you last time. Parks serve as a weapon precisely because it ends points before a rally can even begin, but only when it lands. So Eala stood inside the baseline, took the ball early, and refused to let Parks find any rhythm between points. And then she went after the one target that raw power can't protect, the second serve. Every time Parks missed her first delivery, Eala was there. She won 63.3% of the points played on Parks' second serve, a number that should terrify anyone who relies on a single, explosive strike to control a match. She broke Parks twice in the first set alone, converting 4 of 9 break points across the whole match. The story of the scoreline, 6-3, 6-4, undersells how one-sided the tactical battle actually was. This wasn't power against power. It was a 5'7" left-hander using angles, footwork, and patience to dismantle a 6'1" first strike specialist, point by point, until the American's biggest weapon looked like a liability. And in the stands, the reaction told its own story, a crowd that was overwhelmingly Filipino, erupting on every single winner. Because for them, this wasn't just a tennis match anymore. Here's where the story stops being about one match and starts being about something much bigger. This win over Parks was Eala's 6th straight victory, part of what's quietly become a revenge tour. 6 opponents, 6 players who had beaten her before, 6 matches where she walked back onto court and settled it. It was also her 8th win against a top 10 opponent this year alone, pushing her overall record against elite competition to 9 wins and 4 losses, with victories that read like a highlight reel of the sport's biggest names: Swiatek, Pegula, Svitolina, Goff, Osaka, Paolini. Players who have combined Grand Slam titles, Olympic medals, and world number 1 rankings between them. 7 months ago, Eala was a promising talent people were still learning to pronounce correctly. Now she's a player elite champions have to prepare for. And this is where the story shifts, because winning matches was never the whole picture. A few weeks before Toronto, Eala had already broken through in Washington, capturing her first ever WTA Tour title at the DC Open. It was, in her own words, a crazy 24 hours. The kind of victory that changes how a player is talked about, but also the kind that leaves almost no time to process it before the next battle begins. "My mind's just been going back and forth between focusing on the next match," she admitted. And there's something quietly revealing in that sentence. This isn't a player pausing to celebrate. It's a player who understands that the tour doesn't wait, that a title in Washington on Sunday means practice in Toronto by Tuesday. "I'm learning how to handle it," she said of the whiplash transition between cities, between the emotional high of a first title and the cold reset of a new draw. "I'm slowly transitioning while I have a day to transition." One day. That's what separated a career-defining championship from a second-round match against a woman who beat her in a Grand Slam 7 months earlier. And she didn't just survive that transition, she dominated inside it. The financial numbers attached to all of this are almost difficult to process for a 21-year-old from Quezon City. The DC Open title added roughly $252,000 to her season earnings, pushing her toward the $1 million mark for the year for the first time in her career. But Washington was a 500-level event. Toronto is a WTA 1000, one tier below the Grand Slams in prestige. And this year, its financial rewards have exploded. The tournament carries a total prize pool of $7.43 million, and the singles champion's prize alone sits at $752,275, up nearly 44% from a year earlier. A deep run here doesn't just add Eala's bank account. It rewrites what's possible for her season, potentially pushing her past $2 million in career prize money before the year is even over. And the ranking points matter just as much as the money. A title in Toronto would hand her 1,000 points, double what she earned in Washington. Points that could push her career-high ranking of world number 20 into territory she's never touched before. She entered this tournament seeded 25th. She's no longer playing like it. But here's the piece of information that should stop you for a second, because it reframes everything that's happened so far. Eala isn't just playing for a bigger paycheck or a better ranking. She's playing her way to a rematch she's already lost twice. Waiting in the draw, on the other side of one more win, is Linda Noskova, the reigning Wimbledon champion, the Czech world number 7, and the one player who has consistently had Eala's number this season. Just weeks before Toronto, Noskova beat her in the Berlin semifinal, 6-2, 6-4, a match where the Czech star won 83% of her first serve points and finished with 33 winners against just 15 unforced errors. That's not a close loss. That's a player being systematically taken apart by someone who understood exactly how to do it. And from that loss, Noskova didn't slow down. She rode momentum all the way to a Wimbledon title, cementing herself as one of the most dangerous players in the world right now that on paper. This should be simple. The player who has beaten you twice, who has a Wimbledon trophy to prove it, is standing between you and the biggest financial and ranking milestone of your career. But paper doesn't account for what happened to Eala in the weeks since that Berlin defeat. The player Noskova beat in Germany doesn't fully exist anymore. Since that loss, Eala has won her first WTA Tour title. She's climbed to a career-high ranking. And in a single tournament run, she has now defeated 5 players who have held Grand Slam titles or reached Grand Slam finals. Olympic gold medalists, defending major champions, a former world number 3 among them. Noskova may walk onto court believing she already knows how this match goes. What she may not be prepared for is that she's no longer facing the same opponent she dismantled in Berlin. She's facing someone who has spent the last month proving, over and over, that her past losses are not predictions of her future. There's a pattern quietly forming underneath all of this, one that connects back to that first set collapse in Melbourne. Every opponent who has beaten Eala this season has eventually had to face her again, and every single time, the result has flipped. Parks beat her in January. Eala beat Parks in July. The question now hanging over Toronto is whether Noskova is next on that list, or whether she'll be the one exception to a pattern that is otherwise held all year. A win here wouldn't just be a semi-final or better run at a WTA 1000. It would be the third and most significant chapter of a revenge tour that started in heartbreak and has been rewriting itself, opponent by opponent, ever since. And it would send a message far beyond the scoreline. that the player who once got run over by a 129-mile-an-hour serve in a first-set collapse is no longer someone the tour's elite can treat as a stepping stone. What makes all of this land differently is where it's happening. Toronto isn't neutral ground for Eala. The Filipino community in the Greater Toronto area is more than 250,000 strong, and they have turned Sobeys Stadium into something closer to a home match than a road trip. Tickets sold out. Every winner Eala hit against Parks was met with a roar that had nothing to do with tennis etiquette and everything to do with recognition of a girl from Quezon City in ruffled socks and light-up shoes, carrying something much larger than a racket onto that court. It's nice to see that the Filipino community is really showing up, Eala said, and there's a quiet, deliberate hope buried in what she said next, that their presence isn't just support for her individually, but a spark for a sport that has never had a Filipino star at this level before. She isn't just playing for a title anymore. She's playing in front of the exact people who will remember, decades from now, exactly where they were the night she did it. There's a version of the story that ends with a simple scoreline against Noskova, a win, a loss, a number in a record book. But that's not really what's being decided in the next match. What's being decided is whether the last 7 months were a streak, or whether they were the beginning of something that doesn't stop. Eala has already answered the question of whether she can beat the best in the world. 5 Grand Slam champions and finalists have found that out the hard way in the space of a single tournament. The only question left is whether she can do it against the one opponent who has already beaten her twice, with the biggest prize of her career sitting on the other side of that answer. She doesn't seem interested in looking too far ahead. She isn't obsessing over the ranking or the money or the history within reach. I do look at rankings from time to time, but it's not something I'm checking after every match, she said, and maybe that's exactly why she keeps winning. Somewhere between Melbourne and Toronto, a player who was broken by a serve she couldn't return became someone who neutralizes the fastest weapon in the sport without blinking. What she does the next time she faces a player who has already beaten her twice. That's the part of the story nobody gets to skip ahead and read yet.